Welcome into the episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. On this week's episode, we have Tyler Packanik on the podcast. Tyler is the associate head coach and recruiting coordinator at Jacksonville State University. In this episode, we go through a lot of topics that you don't hear a lot of people talking about, which include junior college recruiting, the transfer portal and how it's used, how they use it at Jacksonville State, evaluating infielders and the mechanics of infielders, and then base running as well. So if you want to follow Tyler on Twitter, follow him at TPAC5. We'll put the link in the show notes. You can follow him there too, if that's easier. And then overall, make sure to follow Jacksonville State Baseball. We'll put those links in Twitter as well and on the show notes page. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Tyler Packanik. All right, we now welcome back onto the podcast Tyler Packanik, who is the associate head coach and recruiting coordinator at Jacksonville State University. Tyler, thanks for coming back on, man.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
So we're going to start off the podcast, and we're going to get right into it. I got a good question for you to kind of get your mind wondering. You're an hour behind me, and we're doing this early in the morning. So just kind of get things going. So my question for you is, obviously you have a lot of different colleagues, other coaches, college coaches, other recruiting coordinators that you've talked to, you've built relationships with ever since you've been coaching, right? And so if they were to describe you as a recruiting coordinator, as a coach, what would they say?
Yeah, and you are starting off hot here.
Yeah.
I think separating the coach piece and the recruiting piece. On the coaching piece, I like to think very forward thinking, right? Even on the infield space, but also blend the old school piece of it too, right? I played for a very old school minded coach, and as a player, you tend to take in things that you like, that you dislike when you start to move into the coaching piece of it. And I think it's a good blend. I think it's good to have both and not just rely on one or the other. And I think on the coaching piece, I think hopefully that's what they're saying about me. On the recruiting side of things, I think hopefully grinder, you hear that word a lot. That's a word that those are the guys that I look up to on the recruiting side. Like that's how I would describe them. So that's kind of hope. That's the hope for me, is how, people describe me as just the grinding piece of it. Cause on the recruiting side, it can be really hard, the time commitment, all of that. But if you work, it's easy to spot the talent, right? Like it's easy to spot the talent, but the hard piece is, are you going to see the talent, right? And there's so many different avenues, whether it's social media, tournaments in Georgia or Florida, or Indiana, wherever they might be. But if you do your job and you work really hard, you're bound to find talent.
You mentioned that there's people that when you look up to them, like you kind of say like, oh, they're grinders on the recruiting trail. Like who would those be? Like what examples of those coaches are there?
Yeah, I don't want to give credit, out there for people to use against me. But one person that really stuck out to me when I first got into the recruiting side is Nate Metzger. Nate was at Wright State for a very long time. The ultimate grinder. I mean, there's stories of him just being at one fall practice a year because he was on the road so much. So Nate's somebody that I looked up to on that front. Now he's in the scouting world with the Cubs, and he's one great example that I think that I definitely look up to, and I think a lot of young coaches that have seen him on the road look up to.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, Nate, he's awesome. Yeah, it is a bummer that he's not in the college game anymore. I'm sure he's killing it with the Cubs. Yeah. But the one thing from my standpoint, being that I'm not a college coach, but obviously I talk to a lot of college coaches about recruiting and players and things like that, is the best recruiters that I've encountered, like a Nate Metzger, like they master the fundamentals. And so when I say like the fundamentals, it's literally just like they move fast. Like you said, they're everywhere. They move fast. They respond fast. They do everything. It seems fast. And it's not like it's kind of like sometimes, even if it's just a 1-word or 2-word answers, it's just they get back to people right away. It's very business-like, I would say. Like I look at recruiters as like, those would be the guys I'd want to go into business with because they would be true professionals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And it's tough. I mean, we talked about it a little bit before. It can be tough because as a college coach, you get a ton of emails, you get a ton of texts. There's emails that I've missed in my day, and there's text messages that I've missed in my day, and you hate to do it. But for the most part, I'm better at text, for example. Like I know there's a story with Nate, and he told me like he never missed an email, which is crazy to me because emails for me is a little tougher. But a text message, I try not to miss a text message.
Did you listen to my episode with Greg Mamula?
I haven't yet. I saw you just posted it though.
Yeah, the only reason I bring that up is he's the exact same way with email, and he even said this. He literally said on the podcast, he was like, "If a player emails us, we will email you back." Like a hundred, and every time that's my communication method with him is email, and it's every time. And it's kind of like you said with texting. Everyone has their preferred method of communication, so I think it's you just kind of go with what you're comfortable with.
Oh, I'm definitely better with text and social media. Like I don't miss that, but email I tend to miss.
So
So
so social media, how do you use social media?
Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And I guess Instagram for me used to be more like family friend based, but it is, the younger generation tends to spend a lot more time on Instagram now. So I'm getting better on that front. But I think in the baseball world in general, I think even the young kids understand like X is where a lot of the college coaches are, even though Instagram's still big for their generation. I think on the baseball side, putting out content and reaching out to college coaches, they're still using X, and X is still probably the best way to reach me. It's better than email for sure.
Is it a turnoff to you, or is it obvious when you see or find out that a parent is running their kid's social media platform?
So I haven't come across that, but I haven't dug, I guess, deep enough. But it is like whether it's, I call a recruit and the parents are on the conversation, or, we have a visit or a camp and the parents lead the conversation more than the kid. Yeah, it's not our favorite, right? Now it also depends on the age. Like August 1st for those juniors, that's the first time they ever talked to college coaches. So obviously it's going to be a little bit awkward and all of that. And want the parents, we want the parents involved in every aspect of it because, as much of the decision is for the kid, parents also have, they have to be a part of that as well. So, but if they're leading the whole conversation, that's a little bit of a red flag itself. So, I haven't come across where just a parent's totally running the social media and maybe I haven't looked hard enough, but the kind of, similar situation I've seen, the parent run the whole conversation. It's like, well, what's this going to look like in 2 years when the kid's on his own? Is he going to be a little bit more timid to speak up and be a leader? Like chances are probably. So we like to see that the kid kind of step forward and take a little bit of a leadership role and own kind of his recruitment process.
So speaking of owning his recruitment process, and we've talked about this, before, several times, is when you're speaking with a kid on the phone, whether it be the first time, whatever it is like, what are some of the things that you want to hear
Yeah.
as a recruiter from them?
Yeah, a couple things. First thing is I want to hear they want to play professional baseball. Like if for me, and it's probably not everyone thinks this way. Like if they talk about, hey, I want to come to your school because of this area of study, it's not my favorite. Like I want to hear I want to play professional baseball. That's number one. If I don't hear that, I start to question how much work are they actually going to put in when they get here. The other piece that I really want to hear, I want to hear them say they want to win. They want to win, and that's all that matters to them. When they talk about that, like one, I know they're gonna, invest in their own development. They're gonna work really hard. Two, if they really want to win, they're gonna be really good teammates because they won't care, you know, if so and so is playing ahead of them for a little bit, or they're not gonna take, I guess, kind of an ego hit if somebody else gets the game winning hit or not, right? Like those are the two biggest things in the recruitment process, especially when I get on a phone with a kid or meet with a kid on visits. Like those are the two big things that I wanna hear.
What about playing time? If they say like, "Oh, I wanna go to a place where I have a chance to start right away," and then they wanna know, like, exactly, "Hey, let's just say I'm a shortstop, like, I wanna know, like, what are the other shortstops that are there, infielders that are there? Are you bringing anyone else in with the in my class?" What are your thoughts when you hear that?
A little indifferent. I mean, it could go either way for me. Like, again, the two big ones are pro ball and winning. The playing time thing, it's a good question to ask for sure. I think if you're on that side of it, of being recruited, if that's important to you, like you want to play early, ask it. For me, it's just I don't really care. If they say, "Hey, like I want to play early," cool. Like Awesome. You have that passion. Now you still got to work really hard to do it.
Mhm.
It's not going to be given to you anywhere
Right.
you go. And I would definitely be leery of anyone that ever told you, like, yeah, you're going to play as a freshman because they don't know. They
Right.
have no
Especially at
idea.
Division I level, yeah.
Yeah, like, they have no idea, honestly, because that recruitment process still might be 5, 6 months out until you even get on campus, right? So, they don't know. If they promise you, "Yep, you're gonna play right away," I'd always steer cautious of that piece of it in the recruiting process, and that's we're honest with people about that, like, "We don't know, you have to earn it," and that's a big thing in our program is you gotta earn it, and then, if that's something that turns them off, then it's probably better that they chose somewhere else to go anyways.
What about once they're there? Like, once they're there and they're not happy with how much playing time that they're getting, is there a protocol or is there, like, an open door policy, or is it like, "Dude, you know what you need to be doing, you're just not doing it?" Like, how do you guys go about players who, once they get there, let's say, they wanna be playing more, should they go talk to somebody, or is it kind of like the writing's on the wall?
Yeah, so I think we do an excellent job of this, and obviously a little biased, but I talk about player development. Player development's a huge piece of our program in general. From it's full circle player development. It's not just hitting side. It's not just pitching side. Base running, defense, the human being piece of it too, right off of the field. And what we mean by that is like we're a program that we share feedback, right? Like I meet with guys every other week. Ari's meeting with guys every single day. Silk's meeting with guys every single day. Coach Beezer's meeting with guys every single day. So they know what they got to do to get better, right? So if they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses every single day. They know what they need to be working on to get there. And something we mentioned day one in our meeting every single year that I've been with Coach Beezer is like the fall's your resume, right? Like that's part of your resume. So don't come complain in February or March of your playing time because you've had all fall to build that resume and to kind of solidify what your role is. Now, roles change, right? We have things like I've never, I bet if we went back and there was a study of college baseball, like there's probably never been a team where the opening day roster was the same as game 32 lineup versus what the last game of the year's lineup looked like, right? So, uh, roles change and all of that. But from a playing time standpoint, the players dictate the playing time. We're not in a business, like, yes, coaches have favorites, right? Like, the guys that work really hard and all of that. But we're also in a business we got to win. So we're going to play which lineup we think is going to win. And sometimes that's going to be out of the player's control, right? Like it could be matchup based. It could be, hey, like this lineup's won 10 games in a row. Why would we mess with the mojo? There's different factors that go into the lineup piece of it. But the players dictate the lineup. It's not us coaches. So that fall is a resume. The early spring's a resume. What you do in games is a resume builder. So it's don't come complain to us when we give you feedback every single day of what you have to do to get better.
Good stuff. Love it. The fall is the resume. I love it. That's the first time I've heard that. I really like that. You mentioned there that how important the development piece is at Jacksonville State and to you guys. Let's talk a little bit about base running and how you go about like coaching that, incorporating that into practice. We're recording this in September. There's going to be high school programs, things like that. They're going to start getting ramped up, doing fall stuff, fall ball, and then into winter as well. And before you know it, it'll be springtime. So, how do you guys go about coaching, base running, incorporating that into practice, and then we can kind of go from there, and I'm sure I'll have some more questions based on what you say.
Yeah, so I think like just like anything, right? There's got to be an assessment piece on the front end, right? And I think we use laser times to get, as accurate of times as possible, but you could use a stopwatch too, right? So my process is I want to just know what their best overall steal time might be or their best overall 90 time might be. So I get that. It's basically it's off of them. Like there's no read involved. It's just their best possible time. If like they had the perfect absolute read, what's that time end up being? If it's a steal time, is it a 3-3? Is it a 3-4? Heck, is it a 3-1 or a 3-2? From there, we have an idea as a coach, all right, like here's his best possible jump time. This is what it looks like. Then, we'll move into what's that first 10 yards look like? Is it quick? Is it slow? And what I found is there's some guys that have really quick 10-yard times, but their steal time's really slow. So It's like, all right, well, they're probably either they're slowing down to slide. There's something on the back end there that's hurting them. I've also have had guys that are really good at the 10 yard, or sorry, the other way, like really, really bad at the 10 yard, but their seal time's really good, right? So it's like, okay, there must be some wasted movement on that front end, or it takes them a little bit longer to get going. So what are some things or techniques that we can do to help them be better in that first 10 yards to just overall make their times better? So that assessment piece is the very first thing. From there, we're going to start to get with the strength coach on that, right? Like we're going to work that into the strength and conditioning piece because they're going to work speed, agility training. So I get with our strength coach, who's awesome, a baseball guy. He gets it, and he incorporates some of the technique stuff that we do on the base running side, on the strength and conditioning side. So he can work with like their first step. He can work with their endurance and all of those things, change of direction. And then from there, like we're gonna get into like game like stuff, right? Where we're building in some reaction off of video and making it as game like as possible. One thing, obviously when I first got into coaching, it was the only thing I had known at that point was me a coach, go stand on the rubber and pretend I'm a pitcher and show a move or deliver a pitch. And that's not very game like, right? And there was only so many types of moves I could show. So we try to put them in as game like challenge as possible as much as we can, and that goes even for like dirt ball reads, right? We're not going to go out there and I'm not going to rip breaking balls from 45 feet and say, hey, read a dirt ball. It's going to be, we're going to put a big hack on the mound and we're going to change it up and we're going to have a catcher block with, foam balls, and we're going to have, as game like as possible reads on dirt balls. But that's the process, for us. It's, you got to have the assessment piece. You have to have like that fundamental work in between, and then you can get to the game like piece at the end.
So when you're evaluating players, is the home to first time more important to you, or is it like, hey, I want to see what their steal time is once they get on first base?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both, right? Like, okay, one, I think home to first can tell you, all right, like how fast is this guy? If he's running under a 4.25, like to me, that's a green runner. Like he's a good runner. But again, I've had guys that are green runners. They can run really fast, but they can't steal bases. Could be lack of confidence, afraid of getting picked off. Their technique's just really bad. So speed is something, it is harder to teach. So like to me, what's more important is the speed factor of it. I believe I can coach the mechanics and how to read pitchers and how to build that confidence of stealing bases. But there is a piece of it too, where like I had guys like our best stolen base guy last year, all fall was a yellow runner. He was a yellow runner, and he'd always be like, Coach Back, I'm a green runner. Like, see how many bags I stole? And it's like, well, how I judge green runner, yellow runner, all that. Like, dude has awesome feel. I mean, one of the best feels that I've ever seen on the base path, which is also really good too, right? Like that's a tool in my opinion, but the speed piece is really hard to teach. So that's what I would kind of consider a little bit more important.
Parents, are you tired of spending money going from showcase to camp, not even knowing if a coach is even looking for your son's position or even knows his name? One of the reasons that I started my college baseball recruiting service is to help guide families throughout the recruiting process so you're not having to waste money and time going from showcase or camp to camp. If you're interested in hearing more about how I can help your son, head to patrickjonesbaseball.com and fill out the form. That's patrickjonesbaseball.com. Fill out the form right on the homepage, and I'll be in touch. All right, back to the podcast. Your background is you're a really good base running coach, but you're also a really good infield coach as well. And that's one of the things that I think is maybe not a lot of people are educated on, especially when it comes to high school players, parents, even coaches from that standpoint. From an evaluation standpoint, what are you looking for from a mechanical standpoint when it comes to evaluating infielders?
Yeah. So, and whether it's the recruiting piece or when they're actually here, when, the recruiting piece, I'm standing there, I'm watching, going through it. The coaching piece, we videotape a lot of ground balls and guys watch, they'll watch on video delay, all of that stuff. Like that process is very similar on both ends. So the very first thing that I'm looking for, that if you talk to one of our infielders that like we're looking for on the video, is the prep step, right? Are they, is the mechanics of it really good? Are they in a good position to be able to react in any direction with equal effort? Is the timing really good? The timing piece is really important. Are they down too early, right? For us, we'd rather be late. We have the saying around here, an object in motion stays in motion. So we want to be a little bit later on that prep step. And then also it's like, to me, it's a care factor. If you care to prep every time, like you actually care about defense. If you're lazy about it, and tells me like, you know, you're probably going to make some plays a little harder for yourself, which are going to lead to more errors and more booted balls. So the first thing we're going to look is the prep step. Now, on the recruiting side, that's something we can teach, we can educate. But if a kid's doing something like he's engaged, shows me he cares, right? I can fix the mechanics piece, I can fix the timing piece of it, but I can't fix the care piece of it. That's really hard to do. The next piece we talk about is like route efficiency. So just like Major League Baseball and StatCast, you see it with outfielders all the time, right? You see, that route was 97%, right? On the infield side, it's something I don't think we talk enough about. So I have our guys graded out on a scale 1 to 3. One being, you're direct, you're point A to point B. That's really good. 2 is there's a little wasted movement. 3 is like you took way too many extra steps to get to your catch point. The higher you move up, right? Like faster runners are, all of that good stuff. So you have to be direct. You have to go from point A to point B with your footwork. Doesn't mean, hey, I get to my catch point, like I can stutter my steps to, be on time with the ball. That's totally fine. But am I rounding too much? Right. I hate like, hey, create momentum towards first. You create momentum by being on time with your left foot through the baseball. So we're going point A to point B the best we can. So that's the next thing. And you hear scouts always say, infielders have good feet. To me, good feet is being on time. That's when you look at video, is the left toe still in the air as the ball is being caught? If your left toes are down when the ball hits the glove, that means you're too early. That means it's going to be a stagnant process and you're going to have to use extra momentum to get your momentum through the baseball to get into your throwing footwork. The next piece of it, and it kind of bunches a bunch of things together, is just throwing efficiency, right? So there's guys that can throw 95 across the diamond. That's great. There's guys that throw 85 across the diamond. That's fine too if you know when to get it out in time. If you're throwing 85, you're probably going to do a lot more two-step patterns, right? Like you're going to have to get it out quick. If you're 95, you might be able to sacrifice and go 4-step pattern and do your thing. At the end of the day, that ball needs to beat the runner to first base. I don't care what that looks like. And it's got to be accurate too. So, when we're looking at video, there's some things that go into that, right? Like, the footwork piece of it. Is there a good clean catch that leads to a clean transfer, which allows a good throw? All of that to me, it goes into like the throwing efficiency bucket. And when I'm looking at, recruits or we're looking at video with our guys, I'd say that's kind of the process. Prep step, the route efficiency, and then the throwing efficiency piece of it.
What about just the overall look of and kind of just how they move in general? And is that something that's a little bit overrated, right? Because I think even when I'm watching games, like if I watch an infielder and they look really smooth and efficient and like
Mhm.
arm action's great and all that stuff, like I'm more drawn to them. But sometimes I wonder is like, does that mean they're a good infielder, right? Versus the guy who's maybe arm action just looks a little bit different, but he makes the play every time. It's accurate, and he just fundamentally sound.
Yeah, right. Like we all want athletes, right? We want guys that move really well because typically they're easier to change and they're easier to make adjustments with. The guys that move really well too tend to maybe have more range, which, especially I think that's important. What now, even at the pro level when you can't shift, but even at the college level where we don't have as much info. So we need guys that can cover as much ground. Yeah, I've seen guys that throw maybe a little funky, but they get the job done. Right? Like at the end of the day, when we go through the fall, early spring with guys and we're training, we're going to clean some things up, do all of that. But when it gets to game time, when it gets to, in February, that second week, I don't care how you get it done. I don't care how you catch the ball, like getting out. Like if you're not getting outs, you can't play for us. So, like when it comes to game time, you got to do what you got to do. For example, I had one of our freshmen come up to me and ask me, he's like, "Hey coach, like I really like fielding the ball one-handed." I said, "Great. That's awesome." And, we were doing a lot of two-handed work that day. And I said, "Well, like there's going to be certain plays where you just absolutely have to go two-hand. Balls hit 105, right? Really hard for you to run through that and make that play one-handed. But there's a lot of ground balls, especially, in infield play where you could probably choose one or the other, right? And both could get the job done. And whatever you're most comfortable with, you go do, right? So, um, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, do guys make outs or not? And that's something that's really important on that. How they move, like to me, is a lot different. Might be a little different than how somebody else looks at it. Like how I'm looking at how guys move on the infield is that efficiency. Like, they might be a little slower body moving, but are they efficient from point A to point B? I talked about like the left toe. I like looking at timing. Like I want to see what the left toes are doing at point of catch. If those toes are down, like that tells me like their timing's off, which, is something I think I can fix, but again, like that's a little harder to teach. The timing piece of it, there's some rhythm to it. I don't know if you've ever taken any dance classes or not, but I'm not a very good dancer. So, for me, like I think it's really hard to learn. I think I'd have to spend a lot of time doing it. So I'd rather take the guy that might already have some really good timing and let's build off of that versus a guy that doesn't have very good timing, because that's just more work on my end to make better.
Yeah, I have not taken any dance classes. I'm with you though, like, I'm so bad with dancing. I don't know why, because I was a pretty decent athlete, but, like, I'm so just uncoordinated when it comes to dancing. I'm embarrassed to dance by myself if nobody's around.
Yeah,
Like, that's how bad I am.
same way.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing just to even say that, but that's just the way it is. You've talked to me about body types before. I think that's something that a lot of coaches value, even if they don't even really realize it. When it comes to body types, what types of body types do you like? Because that's something I think people probably need to hear more about. Because they always you want to quantify everything, and there's some that's like you're kind of built the way you're built, and sometimes
Yeah.
the way you're built coaches feel like, and just based on past experiences, like, man, there's room to grow. You're going to get better. Or they just have had players in the past built like you have had success as well. So when it comes to just body types, what are those types of bodies that you're more so attracted to? Which sounds weird even just saying that, but what type of
On
body
the
types?
recruiting side, on the
Yeah,
baseball
recruiting
recruiting
side.
side.
Yeah.
So, I'll get into this after I say, I played, I'm 5'9", I like to say I'm 5'10", 5'11", but I'm 5'9", and when I played college baseball, I was probably 150, right? And my favorite player of all time is Dustin Pedroia. So, I say that, and then, when I think if you watch our team, like, you'll see we're pretty physical, right? Like, we got some guys, we got a catcher, I think he's about 6'5", we got
No.
a two-way guy that's close to like 6'6". Heck, a lot of our pitcher, basically every pitcher besides two that I can think of right now are going to be pushing that 6'3", 6'4", right? And I think baseball, you're seeing across all levels, just get more and more physical, right? Like you're getting bigger, they're getting stronger, they're getting faster, right? So not to say like we got a guy on our team who he might be 5'11", he's probably 6 foot, but he's 160, right? So there are different body types and all of that good stuff. And that's the one thing I love about baseball, right? It's not one shape or one size, but when I'm looking at it, it does, the position kind of matters, right? Like probably not going after a 5'6" right, right fielder with not much juice, right? Like
Yeah.
it all depends. Like I think the position piece depends, but for us, like we like bigger, stronger, long limb bodies that hit left-handed. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, that's our, when we see that, it's like, the eyes kinda perk up a little bit, and, we're gonna maybe pay a little bit more attention than normal. But still, like, that player still has to perform, they still have to show tools and all of that stuff. But why? I think because, like, our strength coach, when I bring that guy on a visit, our strength coach can be like, "Man, I could probably add 20 pounds to that guy," and, like, he's still going to be athletic and he's still going to be able to move well. Where if you bring in a shorter guy who, might already kind of have a figure together, he's going to be like, I can't really, add much more to that. Right. So the reasoning behind it, maybe it's on the strength side, on the pitching side, like you see that big long limb body and it moves pretty well already. Like I know Silk's going to be like, man, I can probably add some velo to that. Where the shorter guy, he's probably going to be like, we can probably add a little bit here and there, but is that peak getting there or not? So that's why I would say, hey, we lean to like the bigger, stronger, more physical guy that's projectable because of those reasons, because of the potential that we see that guy can grow to. But that piece is important. Like I've told you this in the past, like that's the first thing I write on guys. Like when first time I go watch a team, the first thing I'm going through in the lineup is just writing kind of the body type and what it looks like.
Yeah, I agree 100% and for all the reasons that you just said. Going back to what we were just talking about in terms of, like, their body, and you mentioned also, like, okay, they hit left-handed as well? Is that because just the majority of the pitchers you guys are gonna face are right-handed, and so you just playing the odds?
Yeah, so a little bit of it is that, right? Like naturally, you tend to face more right-handed pitchers than lefty. Uh, Two, it's harder to find left-handed hitters, right? Like there's more right-handed hitters. So when you see a big lefty hitter, it's like okay, cool, that's a little different. And then another piece of it is our park. Like our park is a bigger one in college baseball. So one, it takes a man to kind of hit it out of our yard. The only place I would say that it flies to would be Cocky's corner and right field. So, it's like, okay, lefties, it's going to play a little bit more too. So there's a kind of a little bit of all of that. It would be the reason we lean more towards the lefty hitter. But now, we know, hey, we're going to play some games on the road. What's our lineup going to look like when we face a left-handed hitter? Like we got to balance it on that end too, because it's not going to always be the case. But that would be the reason why we'd maybe lean a little bit more towards the left-handed hitting side than the right-handed hitting side.
Got it, makes sense. Let's talk a little bit more about the recruiting side of things. I know, again, you're a grinder. You've got an 8-hour drive ahead of you even later on today to go
Mm-hmm.
watch some games, even driving through the night.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in September. It's not even the summertime. Transfer portal. There's a lot of people out there, they're confused, they don't know what to make of it, how it works. Should they go in it? Should they not go in it? Should they use the current school that they're at as leverage? Like, there's so many different variables and things we could go into the transfer portal. Like, what are some of the things that you feel like would be beneficial for people to hear when it comes to your own experience in working with players in the transfer portal, trying to get players, but also just seeing from an outsider and recruiting coordinator standpoint of what players are going in the transfer portal?
Yeah, the first thing that like comes to mind is the grass isn't always greener on the other side, right? Like you just never know, like if you're in a really good situation where you really like your coaches, you really trust them, you like the culture that you're in. To me, it's like why even bother, right? Like if you go back and look at the MLB draft, guys got drafted out of high school, guys got drafted at the Power Four level, guys got drafted at the mid major level, the JUCO level, the Division 3 level. Like scouts are really good at their job. They're going to find good players. So if you're in a really good situation where you like the coaches, you trust their process, you trust the culture of your teammates, why leave? Right? Like you're in a good situation. Again, because you don't know what you're walking into. But then, I think the transfer portal was made for situations where, players maybe ended up places where they didn't expect what they got into. And they are trying to search for a better home for them, a better fit. And, I think that's what the intention of the whole transfer portal was on the front end, not what it's gotten into. So, there's some good and bads to it. And I like to look at the good at it. And there's guys that they didn't get that playing time at the Power Four level and they can move down, right? And it's like, okay, like it's totally understandable. They just need someone to believe in them. And, that's like we get that case a lot, right? Guys that were at maybe a higher level than us, so to speak, right now. And like, hey, I just need opportunity. And that's what they care about. And, that's what the portal is for. And, it's great in that sense. So I think it's a case to case basis. And I was listening to a podcast the other day with Nick Saban and how, why he left when he was with Miami Dolphins to go back to college. And, he went back because he could impact the young person more, right? In all aspects of life. And now he's like, if he had a choice, if he had to go back into coaching, would he go to pro or college? And he's like, I'd go to pro because college is pro. And, that kind of hit home a little bit because it's like, oh, yeah, like, you can see some of it even on the baseball side. And, you can see Nick Saban's frustrations with it on that end. But again, me, like, I try to think of the good of it. And, it's if I'm doing a good job, I'm impacting the young guys around us. Like, that I'm doing my job. And at the end of the day, people are going to make decisions and all of that, but make decisions based off of your current situation. If you're in a really good situation, you really like it, there's no need, right? Because good players get found everywhere. If you're in a bad situation, you don't like it, like that's what the portal was made for, right? And it's like, okay, make sure you do your homework this time. and,
Yeah.
go through the process and find that good home for yourself.
I think a lot of people are hoping for a payday too, and I think and you would probably know this better than me, but there's not as much money going around as I think people thinks there is when it comes to NIL, especially in baseball. I mean, is that correct from what you've seen too?
Yeah, and my thing to that too is like, go back to what the dream is. What's the dream, right? And I think if you ask, a lot of Division I baseball players what the dream is, the long term dream is to play professional baseball, right? So if that's the dream, you go somewhere where, again, like you're going to trust in the culture, you're going to trust in the coaches that are working with you, the opportunity. Don't get into the situation where you don't know what's going to happen, whether that's playing time or the coaches putting the work in, maybe just for a little extra money right now, right? Because like that's not going to help the long-term goal, right? And I mean, I know your road, but you might have, like I know for me, like I've taken jobs where it was a little less pay for the better of my future and put myself in situations and sometimes, like, that might be the case. Like, hey, what's gonna help me more long term versus what's gonna help me for 1 year or 2 years? So there's a lot of things I think that have to go into play and that you actually have to think about.
Good stuff. Yeah, always play the long game. That's one of the things I've always tried to do and think about anyway, whether it be relationships or, like you said, coaching, professional, whatever it is. So I think that's great advice from you. What about junior college recruiting? Because I think that's something you're seeing more guys now, even at the high school level, who I think could go and maybe even play, even get on a D1 roster in the past because of the new roster rules, things like that. They're going more the JUCO route right away. So how do you go about recruiting from the junior college route, and what are some of the things that maybe you're looking for to when you're bringing in a junior college player?
Yeah, I really like junior college. It's something I wish I would have done out of high school. Junior college, it the opportunity to play right away is usually there, right? They play a lot more games than everybody else. So the chances of playing are greater at the junior college level, right? So that piece is really important. Why do the big schools and why do schools get in the transfer portal? Because they're looking for experience. You can get experience in the junior college side of things too, right? You're getting an older guy too. So, the junior college route is really good because the opportunity to play is greater than the Division I. It's greater than the Division II level and so forth. So junior college, I think is a really good thing. I don't think it's a knock. Like there's some really good players. I mentioned earlier, like junior college guys get drafted too. So, it's not a knock on, oh, I got to go junior college. Like junior college is really good. And there's some junior colleges out there that can compete. You can throw them in a Division I conference and they're going to compete right away. For us, like, it's just like anything. We're looking for good players. And there's good players everywhere. Just like professional baseball, they're scouting from high school, scouting from junior college, they're scouting, the Division I, Division II ranks. Same with us. Like we're looking for good players. The piece that I like about the junior college is like, those guys, they're thankful for where they're at a lot of times because junior college typically don't have as many resources. They're taking longer van rides to play a double header for 18 innings and then they got to get back in the van and drive again. It's like, I know when that guy gets to us, he's going to be pretty thankful for what he's got. And it's like, that's pretty cool. We know those guys are going to be pretty thankful when they get, 4 t-shirts, 3 pairs of shorts and molded spikes and metal spikes. And it's like, I know that guy's going to be pretty appreciative of what he's getting, which is always really cool to see. So, for us, it's still, we're looking at everything else. Like, are they a good player? Whether that's on the mound or a position guy. We're going to go junior college for a little bit more experience. We're going to evaluate what we have younger and what's moving up that we're anticipating going into spots. Same on the high school front. Like, okay, we know we're bringing in this in the high school class. So what are we not bringing in? Let's go to the junior college level and let's go to the transfer portal level for that. So it's a little combination of everything, but we're still looking for good players.
If a player is moving up from the junior college level or from the D2, D3 NAI, whatever it is, and they want to get in the portal or whether it's junior college, like I said, they're below you in terms of level. What are you looking for in terms of statistics, right? Because I assume they have to dominate.
Yeah, there's got to be success, right? There's got to be a track record of having success. Now, You asked me this 3 years ago, it would have been a little different our first year here. We would have said, "Hey, we're just looking for tools to make better." Now we've been fortunate, we're winning and we're pretty good, and now we can take the guy that has tools and has had success and has proven it a little bit. So, I guess, it depends what we're looking for. Are we looking for a bat to ball guy? So is the batting average high? The walks to strikeout ratio is a big one across all boards for us as a program. Like, we want to see is the walk to strikeout ratio really good. That means they're making really good decisions. At the lower levels, you can make the assumption that the pitching's a little less. So if they're making really good decisions when the pitching's a little less, like hopefully that's going to carry over. If they're making really bad decisions at the lower level and now they're moving up to a level that the pitching might be better, then it's probably going to be even worse. So that's something I think whether we're looking for a bat to ball guy or a power guy, we're still looking at what the swing decisions look like from a walk to strikeout ratio. On the pitching front, like, for us, like stuff matters. Stuff leads to swing and miss. In college baseball, a lot more bad things tend to happen when balls get put in play. So, when you have a pitcher that can miss barrels and miss contact, that tends to play a little bit better. But we also, we have to have a blend too, right? Like if we're walking a bunch of guys, we have to be able to go to the bullpen and go to a guy we know who's going to fill it up and hit different corners too. So, it's a blend on that front. But for us, we're going to look at what strikes per nine look like. Are they missing barrels? And then, that tends to be guys maybe with a little bit more velo, which is great. But if there's a guy who's got a good, strikes per nine and, he might be 88 to 92, it's like, all right, like he's doing something to miss some barrels. So that's pretty important.
Awesome. Tyler, as always, phenomenal stuff. Appreciate you coming on, man. Where can people follow you if they want to follow you?
Yeah, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. It's TPAC5 on X. That's the one I recommend more. Like that's where I want to post baseball stuff. Instagram's a little bit more personal on that end, and hope maybe that, a couple weeks or years from now, maybe I'll get into the Instagram on the
Well,
baseball side
that's a
more.
big range. Couple weeks to couple years.
I don't know yet. It depends on the generation, I guess, of when they make that change away from X to Instagram. But hopefully, it stays X for now because I think it's a great resources even for coaches to just go through. And again, just like anything, you're going to find things that you like, you dislike. That's cool. But as a coach, you can be a sponge and take in a lot of info. Same thing for players. Like you can go through there and you can find good players everywhere.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
You know.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.